are back. Welcome to episode 2 of the Roman series, Electric Boogaloo. Last left off, Roman heist of the century. We're now in the big dog era. And to cover the big dog era is going to be our wise woman, Leslie. The floor is yours.
Yes, and what a era it was. So again, welcome to the big dog era. Y'all know the era where we were going to see the next John Cena. And so because of this, the hate train pulls away from the station. But wait a second, if we recall, it already left the station like what, 2015? But here we go. So there's a pretty little PLE back in 2017 that we like to call Great Balls of Fire. Now, on this PLE, it was a match. It was an ambulance match. Roman Reigns versus Braun Strowman. So you have this match. It was physical. Of course, it's physical. It's Braun Strowman, right? But Strowman wins. So at the end of this, we see that Roman retaliates even after the match is over. He gets Braun in the ambulance, and then he gets in the ambulance, drives backstage, backs the ambulance into like some tractor trailer type deal. Kurt Angle comes out, and his reaction is priceless. Now, during, of course, this what I saw, and I will let Lauren and Monty give their opinions if they'd like. What I saw with the crowd reaction was it was mixed. It was mixed. I feel some supported Roman during this time, but others still on that hate train. Still on that hate train. But overall a good match to start or to have for the PLE. So I will turn it over to you all if you all have any comments, any reminiscing about this particular match. I just got so tickled. My thing was I literally laughed at Kurt Angle. Wasn't he like the GM at that time?
Yes, Kurt Angle was the GM, and just the look on his face, he's like, what? Get the fly. But personally, I was cackling the entire time because when Roman sat there and got out the ambulance truck and he was holding his arm the way home, it was a
And then
good match.
and then they were like, call 911. I'm like, 911 is already there.
I mean, come on, the ambulance is already there. Why would you call 911 for when the ambulance is like this ambulance truck? Aren't they on standby?
But yes, but it was very entertaining, like a good match. Braun is going to show up later in the story and in the future, so we shall see what happens as we continue to tell the story of Roman Reigns. But then we move on into it's WrestleMania season, WrestleMania 33. And I know a particular certain person on the team that is going to be excited to talk about this match. As we talk about it together, we were talking about it a little before we came on to record today and on to work today. But it was WrestleMania 33, and we will never forget, Roman versus Undertaker. Guys, this was a no holds barred match. Now, if we remember correctly, Roman did eliminate Taker from the Rumble. I feel the crowd reaction, in my opinion, was mixed, but they were firmly behind Taker. So I'm going to pass this over for now to Lauren because this is her two favorite superstars. So I'm going to let her just tell us her thoughts and everything about this match and what she thought and felt.
Yeah, hey guys, it's Lauren. Thank you for letting me talk on Roman and Taker. As Leslie said, Roman and Taker are my two favorite superstars of all time. They're pretty much equals with each other to me, so I'm super excited to talk about this, as she said. And also, like Leslie said, we did have Roman Reigns in the 2017 Royal Rumble. He also had a Universal title match against KO in the same night. So he had a lot going on at the Rumble. And as Leslie said, it was crazy because Taker actually tried to eliminate Roman, but he was unsuccessful. Roman was sitting there just dangling on to the ropes, and he didn't exactly, have 2 feet touch the ground. But then Roman came back and he actually eliminated The Undertaker, which was a huge, you hear cheers, but then you hear for like 2 seconds, and then all of you hear a whole boo. It was like unison throughout the entire arena. It probably could have blown the roof off. It was that loud. But then, as Leslie said, we're going into Mania season after the Royal Rumble, where we had Taker versus Roman at Mania. Well, this match for me, as we remember, this match actually took place in Orlando, and it was overall great pay-per-view, PLE as they call it now, but Roman versus Taker, I know this match specifically is a really hot debate within so many fans within the WWE universe. Me personally, I loved this match. I was so excited to see my favorite two superstars go at it. What really stood out to me along the whole match was, I was going into this match thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to be here to enjoy it because these are my two favorite superstars. Well, by the end of the night, my whole reaction had changed. And that part I'm really interested in getting into because I was watching it and towards the end of the match, Roman is at one point pretty much just begging the Undertaker, stay down, just stay down, please, just stay down. We love Taker, but like Taker was getting close to the end of his in-ring career, and nobody knew when he was officially going to call it quit. But as we know, at the end of this match, Roman ended up taking the W over Taker, which was alone in itself huge because as we know about The Undertaker, he had an illustrious WrestleMania streak, and Brock Lesnar was the first to break the streak, and then Roman was the only person that ever had another blemish on Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. So, obviously the crowd didn't like the Roman won. The crowd had always felt like Roman was being overpushed, and so they didn't like it. So this is where it changed for me. I didn't realize in that moment how much at the time I thought that I liked Undertaker a little bit over Roman because I was fine. And then Roman goes back up the thing, and then it did not hit me until Taker took off his jacket and his hat, and he put them in the middle of the ring, and that broke my heart. I was like, oh no, Roman just retired The Undertaker. God, I don't like you right now, Roman. Why? Why did you have to why did you have to retire The Undertaker? Because I was one of those people, I know eventually he was going to have to retire, but for me as a fan, you look up to these superstars and you don't ever want to think of one day they have to retire. That's where my head was. And it was just insane. And then, the following night we had Raw, and then Roman got booed out of the building pretty much. And we all talked about it on here. We all kind of feel like that's when they probably should have turned Roman a heel because it would have been amazing. But as we all know, that was not the end for Roman and The Undertaker. Roman and Undertaker would come back just 2 years later and team up together against Drew McIntyre and Shane O'Mac, which we can get into later if you want.
I do want to dive into Undertaker at 33. I just want to say this: there are two things in particular that stand out to me. Number one, Jim Ross called the match, and that was the last time Jim Ross ever called a match at Mania. For me personally, Jim Ross was the commentator of adolescence. I had Vince as a commentator, and then I had good old JR. It was an end of an era, really, in both instances, because Roman is the second person to pin Undertaker. This was it, guys. It was a wrap. When he took off his hat and he left his gear in the ring, it was over. That was the end of an era. It was done. He was gone. Well, at least what we thought he was gone. I do want to say this too. The fact that he came out on Monday and it was just everybody, the entire collective, the entire audience. You guys have heard the heat that Dirty Dominic gets. Think of that times 11. Roman could not get a word out. And then finally he said, this is my yard now. And all I could think to myself was, if they don't turn him heel, then I don't want it. And lo and behold, they didn't do it. They wanted to stick to the cookie cutter John Cena thing because John Cena never turned heel. He was a baby face. He's probably going to retire as a baby face. But that right there, in that instance, in that moment, it was just very poignant to me. Leslie.
And that was it. You all have basically, it just comes out to the storytelling and Jim Ross, his role in helping as commentator to tell that story. So I'm glad that you brought that up, Monty, as far as Jim Ross. So that was a good match. And I had to go back and actually watch it to prepare for, for this evening to appreciate that a little more. And again, like you all were talking about him leaving the gear, that got me. But we are talking about WrestleMania, right? So that leads us to the following year, WrestleMania 34. I would rather forget WrestleMania 34 as a Roman Reigns fan because in this match he actually fought Brock Lesnar. But let me tell you all I remember, and this is just me because I'm a very visual person. So, but I'll remember, guys, from this match is the brutality and the beatdown that Roman took from Brock, and it was just, you got that scene where his face is just bloody, and it's like the matches was always physical. They've always been physical, but for me as a Roman fan, it was hard to watch. Your all's thoughts on WrestleMania 34?
So this is where I voiced my disappointment in WrestleMania 34, Roman and Brock too. Roman was gonna win. I really did. I was so hyped up when the match happened. I was like, yes, Roman's finally gonna get his lick back on Brock. And then the match happened and Brock bloodied him up, and I remember being so viscerally upset and angry that I turned it off. That's how angry it had made me because Brock and Roman, their first match was great, minus Seth Rollins coming in and not being a friend and cashing in on Roman. Their match was great, but also the fact that Brock had brutalized him in this way, I was like, I can't watch it. It's like watching somebody being killed right in front of me. So that was my point of view on it.
Think for me, I think that match, it was brutal, and I believe that's the same Mania that I know for me, it pops up a lot on our timeline, Twitter that I've seen. But Brock Lesnar, he obviously retained the title like Brock was doing at the time. He just went back to the back and he threw that junk at Vince. I don't even think Brock was happy about the fact that, he had, from what I was reading, this may or may, I don't know. I'm not saying this is a fact. But from what I read, Brock was not excited about it. Went over Roman, and Roman was going into the match thinking he was going to go over. And then apparently, just like 5 or 10 minutes before the match, and there was like interjection into the match, I guess. And then, it was told that Brock was going to go over, and then Brock went over, and then that's when we see that backstage footage of like Brock throwing it at Vince, and then him just walking to the back, because I remember the TV and not like Roman's face was just, it was bloody. I felt bad for that man that day.
Oh my goodness. It was an experience, and I don't know, y'all. Like I said, I just remember it was crazy. I got upset that day. Okay. I got upset that day. Moving, of course, Roman kills me with these I'm super proud of him and he's amazing, but these people that he gets in these matches with, all the physicality, nothing's going to change with the next match that we're going to discuss. That is Backlash 2018. Now, it was Roman versus Samoa Joe. Roman did win that match, but for me it was a very physical match. Now I don't know how much more to add. I can't actually, to be honest, I can't remember the backstory behind that. So Monty, you may be able to add something more to that, as to remind me and to tell our audience and our maybe our newer wrestling fans the story behind the Roman Samoa Joe rivalry.
Okay, so let me just start it off like this. So Samoa Joe is not related to the Anoa'ites whatsoever. He's another Samoan named Joe. I always tell everybody, if you want to look up Samoa Joe, look up his stuff in Impact, look up his stuff in Ring of Honor, look up his
Exactly.
stuff in WWE, look up his stuff in AEW if you want. Samoa Joe is good at what he does. He's just good at what he does. When Roman lost to Brock Lesnar Monday night after, Samoa Joe cut a promo on Roman, and thus began their rivalry. Samoa Joe and Roman worked really, really well together. And in my opinion, Samoa Joe does appear a little in Roman's timeline and in Roman's story. When he was there, he did do commentary in a match that we're going to discuss later on, which involves Roman's favorite number two, Drew McIntyre. But Samoa Joe and Roman, their styles of wrestling complemented each other very well. So I will say that there's a continuance in that story with Roman and Joe, but this match right here, I think that Roman was the one who had to. Samoa Joe has tried and true. He's been in this business for a very long time. Roman really had to earn his stripes with Samoa Joe in order to get that respect in the ring from him. But that is where I'm going to leave it with that. We're getting more to discuss.
Okay. Lauren, have you got anything on that match?
No. But whenever, just come back to me if we talk about extreme rules in 2019, because I got more to talk about with the Roman Taker stuff, because it comes back around full circle from Mania 33.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's move on to SummerSlam season of that year. You have, once again, Roman versus Brock. If I remember this correct and I got my notes right, at this time, Brock is champion. Let's see. So we see that in the match you got Braun Strowman. He is the Money in the Bank winner, right, for that year. So he comes down to the ring. He's providing the distraction. He tells them, "Hey, whoever wins, he's cashing in." So he immediately lets them know, "I'm cashing in on whoever. I'm cashing on you. If you win, Brock, I'm cashing in on you." So he doesn't really care who wins. He's making a statement, right? Roman does beat Brock. And in this point, Braun was true to his word. He tried to cash in, but at the end of the day, Roman beats Brock. Roman is champion. Now, my question is, and I'm going to be real, because I forgot, I don't know how that worked. I do know obviously how Money in the Bank works. So was that like that year, Monty, Lauren, either one of you, if you want to answer this question, was that an official cash in? So Braun didn't cash in or attempt any more cash-ins, right? That was his official cash-in attempt for his Money in the Bank contract that year.
He had a later cash-in attempt. It was a failed attempt because Brock Lesnar, if you remember, beat the mess out of Braun Strowman with the briefcase and I think with the chair possibly. I do want to say this, and this is going to touch on something. Do y'all remember when Paul Heyman was trying to get Roman to become his next meal ticket during this whole time frame?
It seems, I know, of course, during that feud, Paul cut some promos. To be honest, I don't recall what those consisted of, but okay. Tell us more.
While Samoans, he rode with Roman's dad. Rest in peace, Alpha. He rode with Roman's dad, Seeker, and with his uncle Alpha. And they taught him the ropes, taught him everything that he knew. That Paul has been a part of his family. He helped with the Dangerous Alliance. He was part of this family for such a long time. So Paul was trying to get Roman to, take me. And there was that whole moment where Paul said, "Who's your winner? You're ready to defend the undisputed Universal Champion, Roman Reigns." Y'all remember that. It's going to jog your memory when I say this. But Paul was begging. Paul was down bad. Paul was like us. He was down bad. He wanted Roman to be his boss. He wanted to manage Roman. He wanted Roman. He was down bad.
Now that you've kind of took me back, so to speak, I do remember that because he was telling him, I remember those promos. Let me just say that I remember those promos and how he was telling him he had worked with his dad and uncle, and yes, they were amazing in their own right, and rest in peace. And y'all gonna get me emotional, and I'm gonna cry, and I'm on point, so I don't want to cry.
I want to bring this up to you guys too, because for me, and I think it was that SummerSlam, because I was going, is Roman going to turn? Is he going to turn? Is that possible? Are we getting it? But if y'all can remember, Paul actually sprayed pepper spray in Roman's eyes.
Okay.
Now is it coming up? Is it, y'all remember it? Is it coming up?
I am remembering.
Was it then or was it an earlier time? Because I don't remember, but I do remember sometime in the Big Dog era. I just can't remember if it was earlier or later when Roman actually predicted his future when he said he was the tribal chief. He was the guy that was going to be the one he was doing this to provide for his family.
That was an earlier time, and that was when we started to get glimpses of what was to come in the future.
That's what
Of
I thought.
course,
Okay.
Paul Heyman, doing the come to the dark side, I have cookies, I'm down bad, like please pick me, I want you, pick me, you know, that right there, love you, wise man, but that right there was when we started to get glimpses of it. Like he was showing us where he was gonna go and how far he was going to take it. We were just on the ride. And right now we're currently in the big dog era and we're on this ride right now. And we're still strapped in, ready to take this journey some more. Let's go.
Alrighty, so here we are. Roman has did his thing. He is now the Universal Champion until reality slaps not only him in the face, but because it does with him in this upcoming announcement also strikes pulls at the heartstrings of the WWE universe when on October 22nd of 2018, Joe reveals to us on Raw that he has relapsed and therefore his leukemia has returned. He goes in to explain the story of how and when he was diagnosed. He has to relinquish the Universal title. You see him leave the ring. You see them go to the top of the stage near Gorilla, and right before they go in, of course, and you see Dean and you see Seth come out, and you have the whole instance to where they just share this moment with their friend and try to comfort him. Probably, I'm speculating in a good way, probably speaking words of encouragement and, just encouraging him. Meanwhile, the crowd is chanting, "Thank you, Roman. Thank you, Roman." I still remember that night. I'm going to get y'all's thoughts in a second, but I want to go to 4 months later on that whole situation if you'd like to share. But 4 months later, actually on February 25th, 2019, on Raw, Joe comes back and he announces that they've hit a home run. And we know what that means, girls. Ladies, he was in remission. And I can't tell you, I cried tears on that first night, and I cried happy tears on that February 25th, 2019 edition of Raw. So I'm going to just stop here for a moment and just, if you got anything to add, your thoughts, your feelings, or anything about that time in the big dog's life.
I was not expecting him to come back, but when he came back and said, he's in remission, I remember just cheering, just so happy that he was back and that he was in remission. But yeah, it's good to have him back, and it's good to see that he's still fighting, he's still thriving. Lauren.
Okay, so I'm just going to be real with you guys and everybody on here. Leslie sitting there talking about it. I'm not even kidding you. If you guys could see me on camera right now, I literally have tears in my eyes right now. Even though I know he's in remission and he's thriving and he's doing so well with life right now, like, man, that really killed me inside as a fan because I looked up to Roman so much. Like, we'll probably talk in later episodes, or, you probably have seen me talk about it on our Twitter. This man, had a whole quote that ended up really in general, saving my life. And so to hear that, this hero of mine sits there and it comes out and saying that, I've been living with leukemia and it's back. It literally killed me. I remember them announcing that Roman had a announcement or whatever that he was going to make. And he's out there and he's saying, I can't be that fighting champion, because when Roman became the Universal Champion, he had vowed to be the fighting champion. And, he comes out there and he's like, I can't be that fighting champion. Like, I told work, I was like, I gotta go. Roman Reigns has got us beat tonight, and I ain't missing it. I literally said this to my boss. I'm like, at that point, I'm like, no, like, whatever. Like, this has got. I gotta go. I gotta be that wrestling fan. Like, this has got to come over work for a minute. So I remember just taking off and going home and watching it, and it broke my heart hearing it. But Roman coming back and saying he was in remission, I cried all over again. But this time it was happy tears. I was so happy to hear that he was in remission. Like, again, I told my boss, I was like, I got to go. So yeah, it was really, really nice to hear that he was doing good. And hey, it was around the same time, that he did that movie with The Rock, Hobbs and Shaw. He featured in. He was.
And he played Mateo in Hobbs and Shaw. And of course, there was a whole moment during that time where was it Roman had accidentally hit a cameraman with
Yeah.
we're gonna dive into this. We got a lot to discuss. Trust me, it's one of those things where you sit there and you think about it, you go, cameraman accident. Funny. But no, I digress. Let's continue.
Right, right. And just real quick for me, I know we are so thankful that we know he's had a year already this year, but despite all that, I am so thankful that he is still healthy and still he looks great, y'all. I'm just glad he's healthy and still in remission and my prayers are always with Joe that he stays healthy and in mind and body. So moving on, we go to April 16th, 2019. Now, this is when Roman joins SmackDown. Okay, so Vince McMahon on this particular SmackDown is in the ring and he's getting ready to announce SmackDown's newest acquisition, which turns out to be none other than Elias. So it goes on and on. Roman comes out and he interrupts Elias. Elias is doing his thing. He's giving his cutting his promo. Roman comes out and interrupts, and there's a scrap. Superman punches Elias. Then you get Vince. You know how Vince is. Vince don't like being interrupted. How dare you interrupt Vincent Kennedy McMahon? How dare you interrupt the boss? So he is just berating Roman, right? And he's like pointing his face in there. And let me tell you what our big dog does. He Superman punches Vince McMahon. Now tell me, how many of y'all out there, and I'm sure girls, I know I have, had a boss that you would just like to punch in the face? Being real. My
I
hand is
can
raised.
I can think of one. I can think of one. And she knows who she is. I hope to never see her again because if she sees me, I'm gonna give her what for and why.
But yes. It's a moment, everybody cheers. So we say in that moment, welcome to SmackDown Live, Roman Reigns. SmackDown Live now is indeed his yard. So moving on, we have, of course, he's on the SmackDown roster. We have WrestleMania 35, which is, let's see, Roman versus Drew McIntyre. Now, if I remember correctly, I do remember, I believe, was he on SmackDown or Raw? But nonetheless, one of the shows, Drew had been running his mouth like Drew does, heel Drew does, and all this stuff. And he had been talking mess about Roman's illness and about his family and about all this stuff. But Roman had previously, he says, do y'all remember the promo he cuts before this WrestleMania? They're in the ring and he says, Roman accepts your challenge. But what I'm about to say next isn't coming from Roman. Don't you dare talk about my kids and my wife. In other words, so this is where all this is stemming from. Roman versus Drew, WrestleMania 35. Roman defeats Drew, but I'm gonna let you all add more to that. Moni, we'll start with you on this one. Y'all want to talk about this rivalry, this particular match?
Well, this is the first one of many times that we're going to see Drew McIntyre in the story, in Roman's timeline, in the Roman story. This was just the first one, of course, and this is when Drew was the Scottish psychopath, which, by the way, not a good title for Player Hater of the Year. But this is actually the very beginning of it. The match, in my opinion, it's Drew and Roman. Drew and Roman's going to give Drew and Roman are going to give you a classic. They're going to give you a good one. I do want to point this out, too. This was the first WrestleMania, by the way, where the men did not main event. The main event was the women. Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Ronda Rousey main evented this WrestleMania. So Drew and Roman didn't go on last.
So, okay, the thing I want to talk about with Drew and Roman is, okay, so we talked about earlier how Taker and Roman were my two favorites superstars, but Drew's with them. Drew's with them for sure. They're like my favorite three. So, again, I was in another position where I was, just excited to be there, watch it. Because I love Drew and I love Roman. I feel like if we're going to talk about Drew, we have to give a small little shout out to our friend Cherry, the biggest Drew McIntyre fan that we know.
We love you, Cherry.
We love you, Jerry. And going back to this, so for me, it was such a good match. And as Monty said, this would not be the end of Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns. Drew and Roman has had such an amazing career, and like we could have a whole podcast episode talking about them alone and how amazing they work with each other. Like it's crazy because right after this, Roman was actually over on Raw for a bit, if we remember.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, we had a Shield reunion, didn't we?
yeah, and it was right after Mania. Come June, we're seeing Drew McIntyre and this feud with Roman again because it did not stop at WrestleMania. It continued, except that's when we got led into. And unlike that came literally out of nowhere, no pun intended, for Roman because Drew had became besties with Shane O'Mac at the time. And it was in June 24th of that year. We were leading on up to Extreme Rules, where we had another visit from The Undertaker to show up and help Roman.
Brings us to Extreme Rules 2019. Undertaker and Roman Reigns versus Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre.
Right. So yes. So like you all were saying, you have Drew, of course, enlist Shane's help. You have Roman enlisting the help of the Phenom, and it goes like any tag team match that you do back and forth. But Taker picks up the win. Isn't this the match though where I can't remember who he pinned though, but I know the other one Roman had speared, the other one Taker picks up the win with a tombstone. Y'all can correct me on who. I'm sorry, my brain is like out there. But nonetheless, they win. And this is where I think that Undertaker continues to show his approval of the big dog. You see them every time they're together. More and more, he's showing him respect and letting him know that he deserves the place that he's in. If you all have anything on the Extreme Rules match, go ahead.
So this is when I'm gonna give Drew McIntyre his flowers. There was a moment where Undertaker was in the ring, and if y'all can remember it, Drew McIntyre was right behind him, and it became a meme. Like me enjoying my weekend, Monday right behind me. It was a good match, and I do want to say at the end when they won, Undertaker just nodded his head, acknowledging Roman. Of course, not
Mm-hmm.
doing the not acknowledging Roman how we all do, but acknowledging him, and then he climbed out the ring, and it was a good match. Of course, Drew, Roman, Taker, Shane. Where can you go wrong? Lauren?
Okay, so y'all know I was about to climb out of my chair wanting to talk about this. We had Taker show up to help Roman, and I know that's the running joke within the WWE Universe, especially during recent times. But I remember Taker specifically coming out and saying, Roman didn't ask me for my help. I came out because I wanted to. And I remember those lights and that gong going off, and I believe it was Shane O'Mac that was holding the trash can, and it was Roman holding the trash can, and Shane O'Mac was about to do forget the name of
Coast to
the move.
coast.
Coast to
Coast to
coast.
coast.
Yep. He was doing that coast to coast, and those lights went off, and that gong hit, and there was Taker in the ring. Chills all over my body. But I loved this so much. And then Roman and Taker's tag team name even became the Graveyard Dogs, which I have that merch shirt, by the way. And that was their tag team name, the Graveyard Dogs. And so when they go into Extreme Rules, it was a no holds barred match. And as Monty was saying, about the meme, it was Drew McIntyre that was behind Undertaker, and Roman speared Drew McIntyre for Undertaker for for
There you
Undertaker to
go.
come in, get the tombstone, and pile driver, as Taker famously finishes matches with,
Right.
and they pick up the win. And then, if I remember correctly, there a house show match, or maybe it was a match that they had at MSG, and it wasn't televised. But I do know, like Monty said, that's when Taker really started to, like, give Roman his props or acknowledgement that Roman had really kind of wanted from Taker, because I think any superstar could agree that, Taker back in the day was the locker room leader. And if you got acknowledgement and if you got respect from The Undertaker, then you were good. So, I mean, obviously, I don't know Roman personally, but you can just tell in his facial expressions that, he was just so happy to have that respect from The Undertaker. And it was a beautiful thing to see. And I think I remember specifically seeing Taker even tap Roman on this, like, just kind of like tap him on the shoulder, like, "Hey, it is your yard. It's your yard now." Like,
Mhm.
so, like, it was beautiful. It was beautiful as a fan for me to see. The whole thing was beautiful. I loved it all.
Awesome, awesome. And thank you all. I had just watched that match, like some of it this morning, and I literally thank you all for like clearing that up. And so it was a Drew that got speared and then Taker pinned Shane. So now I'm good with that. So thank you. And it's just awesome, like you said, Lauren, just to see Taker just finally give that final hint of approval. Yes, this is your yard now. But on and on in the adventures of the big dog as we enter SmackDown, October 5th, 2019, we have a new rivalry, and that is the winner of the King of the Ring tournament. And his name, King Corbin. That's right. This rivalry with Baron Corbin. And I'm going to turn this over to Monty and let her talk about this rivalry for a moment and how it started. So, Monty, can you share with us your recollection about Baron Corbin and Roman's rivalry?
So let's go ahead and let's discuss this right now because this is when I actually came back home and I was able to watch it not on my device anymore. I was able to watch on television. So this is when SmackDown moved from USA to Fox. I'm sure you all remember that. Pretty soon
Mhm.
we will be back at USA and we won't have to worry about our TVs blacking out whenever the audience decides they want to curse. This episode of SmackDown is the season premiere, as they call it, the season premiere of SmackDown on Fox. And in this season premiere, Becky Lynch and The Rock are there. And The Rock comes to the ring. He and Becky high five, da 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 da, boom boom pow. Baron Corbin is there, and I think Lacey Evans. And The Rock makes fun of Baron Corbin. He rock bottoms him, or he gives him the people's elbow. Becky Lynch gives Lacey the manhandle slam. And because of The Rock, Baron Corbin is pissed. And now that he's pissed, he has one person to direct it to, and that would be The Rock's cousin, Roman Reigns. And thus begins the rivalry. And I ask y'all, what does that have to do with Roman? Why are you attacking him? You need to be attacking DJ. I mean, come on now. Like, this ain't got nothing to do with him. He didn't tell Dwayne to rock bottom you. Dwayne did it himself. But I digress. Lauren?
Yeah, this whole feud thing between I'll be the first to admit, like, I was not Corbin's biggest fan by no means. I literally have despised him till recently. It was probably about a year ago, but besides the point, I was not a fan of Corbin. Whatever he was doing, man, it was working. So, I am woman enough to sit here and look at Corbin, or not look at him, but, like, tell him to his face, or over this recording, "Hey, bro, you were doing your job at being a heel, and congratulations to you, because you made me hate you." Because, like, man, this whole thing with Corbin, it lasted a while. It lasted a long while. And, Corbin, being, the heel he was, enlisted some help and Dolph Ziggler, and he had Bobby Roode, and, it just, this rivalry with Corbin lasted a long time. At one point, I didn't think it was going to end.
Mhm.
I don't know how y'all felt, but for me, it felt like this rivalry with Corbin was never going to end.
I can tell you right now because I'm looking at the date and what I put down, and we got to talk about it. As much as it pains me to talk about this mess, and y'all know it pains me to talk about it, I get pissed off every time I think about it, and I have the images forever there embedded in my head. There's not enough brain bleach to take it out of my head. we got to talk about December 6, 2019, and we got to talk about what these idiots did to him.
That was such a crazy time.
Oh my gosh, December 6, 2019. I think as Roman fans, that was one day that, pardon me, pissed all of us off a great deal. So you have Roman, correct? You have Roman versus Dolph Ziggler. Now, you have you have interference, of course, by Corbin. He's trying to distract by King Corbin, trying to distract the refs and all that. It ends up that Roman pins Dolph. So, but he is attacked by Corbin's, what is it, his security, whatever he calls them, and as well as King Corbin himself. You have Ziggler getting in there. You know, it's a numbers game. Roman is being overcome by the proverbial numbers game in this attack. I don't even want to say what happens next because I'm furious even if I think about it. But they get the big dog and they basically shackle him with handcuffs, put the handcuffs over the ring post, you know, so he can't fight back. And then they proceed to do just disrespectful. And I really don't even want to say it, but I'm going to go ahead. Guys, this is one of the things that as Roman fans we talk, especially when it comes to Cody crybabies. Y'all haven't had it bad, okay? Y'all went through Stardust, yes, but we literally went through seeing our hero have dog food poured all over him. Imagine liquid, nasty, smelly dog food. It was gross. It was disrespectful. And I know my girls have their opinion on this. Money go.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Cody crybabies and we're going to talk about how they get upset over Stardust. I would rather take face paint over dog food. I would rather take face paint over dog food. This was the most disrespectful thing you could possibly do to somebody, especially somebody like Roman who has busted his butt for this company for this long. This is the most disrespectful thing you could do to somebody. Oh, I have an idea. Let's cover you in dog food. You're going to hear me say this a few times in our podcast, but Vince, you're a dick. Lauren.
So yeah, the whole dog food thing really absolutely bothered me as a fan. Like, it bothered me as, like, why would someone do this to him? You know, like Leslie and Monty were both saying, like, why would someone do this to him? Like, if anybody you could think of in that company that deserved dog food on them, it wasn't Roman. Because Roman's an overall good guy and doing everything that was asked of him and more, was trying to carry this company, even though the fans hated him. And I still have images in my mind that first time they poured the cans, and then I remember them pouring the bowl, that giant silver bowl of dog food on him. And I just remember seeing it going on over his face, and I'm just looking at him and I'm just like, oh, Roman, you are a way better person than I ever am, because just the fact of that going down your face and the smell, it's making me want to gag just thinking of it.
And you know
But
who? Go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but then after that, see, Roman didn't have to go through that mess once. You know, he had to be in the dog food game again. Except for that's when, and we'll talk about it in a minute, I'm sure. But that's when and you know, the Usos were away at that time. They were out on injury, and then
Right.
Roman had another match with Corbin and Ziggler, and dog food was once again involved. And they had named it they wanted to do the dog food because Roman was the self-proclaimed big dog of the company.
Right. And of course, you know, you leading us into that, Lauren, you leading us into that. So on January 3rd of the next year of 2020 on a SmackDown, Roman indeed gets some help to deal with these fools and their shenanigans and all this in the form of, like you said, of the Usos. That music hits, you know, it takes you back to remember, finally, someone is here to help Roman in this thing. So on this SmackDown, when they come back, you have King Corbin and Ziggler are attacking a fallen Roman Reigns, right? And we hear that Usos theme hit. that first beat, and they're rushing to the aid of their cousin. And this does lead to a tag team match on January 31st of 2020. Of course, we see the beginnings of the bloodline with this tag team match with Roman and the Usos versus Corbin, Rude, and Ziggler. But I'm going to take this over to Monty because I think she has an opinion. We're seeing the beginnings of the bloodline. So I'm going to take her over and let her give you guys her thoughts on everything thus far in this Usos return is concerned.
Okay, so this is what I hate because when I remember something and somebody's talking, I'm like, oh, I remember it, and I want to say it, and then because I'm afraid I'm going to forget. So my apologies, Lauren. Let me go ahead. I'm holding on to it, so now I'm going to say it. There are two things in particular, and I'm going to jog y'all's memory when I say it. But Rikishi was none too pleased with the dog food. He was like us. He was none too pleased. And in fact, I think there was a story going around. Monty is not a dirt sheet. She's just a person who likes wrestling and listens to gossip. I love tea more than anybody else. But Rikishi had made a comment about how this was disrespectful and you don't ever do this to the family again. Well, the Usos showed up on that January 3rd episode of SmackDown, and they cut a promo with Roman, and that promo went, if you mess with him, you mess with me. You mess with me, you mess with him. If you mess with us, you mess with him. I've always said this. I watched The Destruction of the Shield, and Roman talked about his football career when he was in high school, and he played with Jimmy and Jay. And Roman had the ball, and Jimmy and Jay flanked him. Seeing Roman, Jimmy, and Jay in the ring together, I think this is when they started referring to themselves as the Bloodline. But I said, wouldn't they make a good heel faction? They could just dominate and destroy everybody, and can't nobody say nothing to them. This would be an amazing heel faction with Roman as the leader and Jimmy and Jay as the tag champs. I think they would go through a tear. Lo and behold, I would predict the future. There was one part where Jimmy had said, where they had did welcome to the Uso Penitentiary, and Roman was there, and he got to finish it. And I was like, this would be great for the heel faction. But lo and behold, I'm psychic. Leslie.
Alrighty. I want to go to Lauren real quick. Have you got anything, Lauren, that you would like to add to the Usos returning on that night or that tag team match or, anything that you would like to add?
So for me, when the Usos came back that night, and it was the first time we had seen them in a while, I popped so friggin' hard when the Usos came out there and their music hit. I was so excited to see them in general because I love the Usos. Just for them to come back and see that they were helping Roman and Roman was not going to have to deal with this anymore. And then they actually tied. Roman got his revenge. He was able to handcuff Corbin and put him on the post like Roman had to suffer through. And Roman got to get his revenge by pouring dog food on Corbin, which was sweet revenge. At least in my eyes it was. As everybody's been saying, that's when we had the beginnings of the bloodline. I know everybody's excited to talk about the bloodline, and we're going to cover that in Roman 3. Even the backstage segments that are interviews that we had with the twins and Roman, everything was just so good. You could tell something was kind of happening there. It was just an exciting time, but as exciting as that was, we had no idea what we were about to be in store for.
Oh my gosh, and we are definitely going to get to that and lead up to that. But we're going to continue this early 2020 ride with the big dogs on February 28th, 2020 edition of SmackDown. We see Roman versus Goldberg, and I'm going to go back to Monty. I'm going to let you all talk about what you want to as far as this Goldberg feud goes. I don't know. It just did not interest me. Okay, I'm going to be real. I'm going to be transparent. But if you could tell us or help us remember or tell us about the Roman versus Goldberg on SmackDown February 20th.
It was Roman versus Goldberg for WrestleMania 36. Now, here's the interesting thing about this rivalry. And hi, everybody. I'm from Georgia. And what's interesting about this rivalry is Roman was a football player for Georgia Tech, and Goldberg played football in college for University of Georgia. Now, so there's a bit of a football rivalry there, as well as a rivalry. And of course, down south here, we're from the south, but in Georgia in particular, UGA and Georgia Tech, they're enemies. And they have one common enemy, of course, that's everybody's enemy, Roll Tide, is the University of Alabama. But of course, especially back at that time, because Alabama was whooping everybody's butts. Like, I don't watch football, I don't watch college football, but my mom does. And usually when University of Alabama was playing, I could tell by how loud she gets. She gets louder than I do with wrestling, but I digress. So Goldberg and Roman was really a callback to that, but also a callback to, well, past and present. Roman does really, really well, if you've noticed, with a lot of these talent, a lot of these stars that are, past their prime. But then again, as Goldberg, if Roman can make Goldberg look good, we're in business. But this match was supposed to happen at WrestleMania 36. Alas, something happened in 2020 that, well, we're still recovering from. Lauren, what is that?
The unfortunate world shutdown of COVID-19. Don't really want to dive into COVID because I feel like that's got its own scars. I think Roman was supposed to have Goldberg for the Universal title because Goldberg was the Universal Champion at the time.
Yeah, because he beat somebody else. We're going to talk about that too. He beat somebody else for that title, and I think we are all still not recovering from that, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we all know that wasn't supposed to that Roman didn't end up having that match with Goldberg.
Right. And unfortunately, we have to deal with the pandemic. Due to this, lockdown starts virtually everywhere around the world. And lockdown starts March of 2020. I remember that because I had taken my kid out of school. Long story, we started homeschooling that year. Okay, so everybody's like, well, what's going to happen with Mania? What's going to happen with Mania? We see, of course, the start of the Thunderdome era and all these things happening due to changes beyond anyone else's control. WrestleMania now becomes 2 nights. My response to that at first, I don't know how I felt about it. I don't think I really liked it, and that's just me being the traditional wrestling fans for so long to have that one night dedicated to Mania. But it's kind of been fun since having it too, in my humble opinion. But let's get back to the big dog. Roman has WrestleMania that year. He has chosen not to participate due to personal reason, and that was okay. That was okay in my opinion. He got so much slack for making that decision, but at the same time, I for one, 1,000,000% and beyond supported that. Nonetheless, he's not there. So the match at WrestleMania is now Goldberg versus Braun Strowman, ladies. I don't know if you all want to discuss this match or if we want to go further, but I'm going to open that door for you all at this moment. Monty.
Well, Roman has said that he pretty much retired when lockdown started in 2020. So you know what? Roman shut the deuces and said, good luck. Good luck.
Mm-hmm.
Call me when you need me. And he left. And you know what? It wasn't the same without him. Of course, whenever Roman's gone for stretches at a time, if y'all haven't noticed, it tends to get monotonous and it's not the same. Roman gives a lot of great presentation. He gives us good cinema. So that's going to be a word that we're going to be using a lot in the next episode. Get used to that one. But he left, and it was Goldberg versus Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman is the champion. And then Braun Strowman had a little rivalry with the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. By the
Rest in
way,
peace.
today is the one. Today he had a rivalry with Bray Wyatt, and of course Alexa Bliss was involved in it. And as interesting as that was, the main event picture was missing something. It was missing something, and that brings us to August 23rd, 2020. Never seen it coming, Leslie.
And boy, did we never see it coming. So
No.
we are thinking Roman is at home. He is on the island of relevancy, which we will later know that has been called, right? We won't give anything else away, but he is enjoying life at this point. August 23rd, The Fiend versus Braun Strowman. The Fiend wins, but surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
Roman is back, but he's not the big dog.
I just want to make some quotes right now. Hold on.
And then he says, "Oh my God!" And the one that I remember the most, he literally is looking at Bray Wyatt. Oh, rest in peace again, Bray Wyatt. But man, he just sits there and he looks at Bray and he's like, "You're just a freak in a mask." And I was like, "Oh my God, Roman!"
As you see in the documentaries, that when surprise, and Roman comes, we've already mentioned he comes back, and we've mentioned how he is, how he comes back. But one of the Usos say something that really struck me when they saw Roman come back. That's like, this is different. This is Joe. So I will leave it there, and I will let you all. That's my closing. So Monty, Lauren, whoever wants to take. That's y'all. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and the part that we're ending at, super super cool, because like when we see Roman back, you can kind of tell that he's a little different, because even his shirt says "wreck everyone and leave," and that would also be what I like to call the Easter eggs of what the next era Roman was ushering us into, and that's what we'll be covering on our next episode.
Thoughts on SummerSlam. Never seen it coming. I was making a lot of jokes that night because a lot of the matches to me were predictable. I sat there and I go, oh, I saw that coming. No big deal. Saw that coming too. And then, of course, Bray Wyatt won, and I'm like singing Bray Wyatt's theme song, Hurt Heel. And then Roman Spears, and I said, Roman Reigns. What? Surprise, surprise. Guys, lovely. We got it. Episode 2 is in the can. Anybody want to add any last thoughts?
I'm good on my end.
Lauren?
I just want to say RIP Bray Wyatt. I just want to put it on record, because I said earlier I didn't like Roman after his match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania. That only lasted for a hot 24 hours. After that, I was full-fledged back into full Roman fandom, especially because like I heard Roman say, like, how much respect and love he had for The Undertaker in an interview. Like, sometime after that, I was like, oh, okay, I love you, Roman. We're good. I'm good. Don't worry, guys. I only didn't like Roman for 24 hours. It's fine.
Okay, I guess that leaves me to close. With that being said, you can always check us out on Twitter. What is our Twitter handle, guys?
ATD Podcast 23.
Of course, in our Twitter and our bio, you can click the link and you will see our link tree. Our link tree includes our Instagram and our TikTok. We're on TikTok. We get 10,000 followers, guys, on TikTok. Hey, guess what? We can go live and you can see our faces. Last but not least, of course, in our bio and our link tree, you will see our link to our WWE shop page where you can get your merch and get a discount. That way we can get some money. All right. With that being said, please be sure to drink your water. For the love of God, watch your back for chair shots. I'm serious right now. Acknowledge your tribal chief, Roman Reigns. Acknowledge Dynasty, and go vote, everyone. Good night, guys. Good night.
Good night.